He wanted to be rich. He had nothing to show for himself, but he dreamed of making a lot of money. In his early 20s, he quit his job and ended up joining the army. In his mid-20s, he left the army and lost everything in the stock market. In his late 20s, he took out a loan and opened a shop, but it failed because of the competitor right next door. Now, at 30, he felt like a loser, with no qualifications and nothing he could call an achievement. He was depressed. He had poured his entire 20s into chasing success, yet the only thing he had gained since turning 20 was getting older. It was hard not to be pessimistic about his life. Then his grandfather passed away. At the funeral, his uncle said people would remember him as someone who lived a good life, someone who enjoyed himself. The protagonist found it strange. He could barely remember him. He used to see his grandfather all the time as a child, but as he grew older, he only visited a few times. When he was young, every visit ended the same way. His grandfather would reach over the stove and hand him a few candies. His grandfather's gentle, kind smile was the first thing that came to mind whenever he thought about him. Someone asked, "So, Jia Kong, what are you doing these days?" Jia Kong lowered his gaze, unable to answer. His uncle noticed his hesitation and stepped in gently. "Don't worry about it, son. I know things have been difficult for you, especially after what happened with your business." "Oh, I see," a family friend said nearby. "If you're looking for a fresh start, why not take over your grandfather's store?" Jia Kong looked up, startled. "What? Me?" His uncle nodded. "Yes. For some reason, your grandfather really loved that place. We've been trying to keep it running, but I don't think your grandmother can manage it alone anymore. And I have my own job to handle," he added with a sigh. "It's out in the countryside, so I understand young people might not be excited about the idea. But the sales are stable, since there aren't any other shops around." Jia Kong paused, letting the memories of the store resurface. It was a bittersweet feeling, thinking of his grandfather and the moments they had shared in that old shop. After a long breath, he finally said, "Okay, I'll do it." Inside, he told himself, "I'll start my life over from there." As Jia Kong was about to leave, a beautiful woman approached him. "Hello, Jia Kong. It's been a while," she said with a warm smile. They had met earlier at the funeral. It was his aunt, Jean He Choi. "Good to see you again, Aunt Jean He." Jia Kong replied politely. He thought to himself that he would stay at his uncle's house until he found a place of his own. Then he added aloud, "Actually, this is my grandfather's house. My father grew up here." After a long trip to the countryside, Jia Kong finally arrived and was greeted by Jean He again. She welcomed him in, commenting on how exhausting the journey must have been. "It was fine. I actually enjoyed it," he answered. He couldn't help but note how much younger his uncle's wife was. More than 10 years younger than his uncle. "Have you eaten yet?" Jean He asked. "Yes, I already had lunch," Jia Kong replied, setting down his bags and taking in the unfamiliar yet strangely nostalgic surroundings. Jean He invited Jia Kong inside and offered to show him his room. She led him to what had once been his grandfather's study and mentioned that she had cleaned it up just for him. Jia Kong looked around and nodded appreciatively. "It looks nice. Thank you." Jean He smiled, pleased. "You can unpack your things. I'll call you when dinner is ready." "Thanks," he said again before she left him alone. Later, as he sat on the bed, Jia Kong let out a deep sigh. He had spent his whole life chasing work and money, never even dating or taking time for himself. Now, after everything had fallen apart, he found himself right back where he had started. He couldn't help but think it was a little pathetic. Deciding to clear his mind, he went out to take a look at the store. When he arrived, he saw an elderly woman stacking boxes near the entrance. It didn't take him long to recognize her, his grandmother. "Grandma," he called. "Out." She turned, startled at first, but her face lit up with joy. "Oh, Jia Kong, what are you doing here?" "I'll be starting work tomorrow," he explained. "I wanted to stop by and see the place beforehand." He commented that nothing seemed to have changed, and his grandmother nodded, saying that was simply how things were in a place like this. As Jia Kong continued looking around, his eyes landed on a flyer taped to the counter that read "Hole Closed." He offered to help his grandmother with the work, but she waved him off. "Go home and rest. You just arrived. I don't have anything else to do anyway," he insisted. "Let me help a little." After a while, Jia Kong asked how she had planned to manage everything on her own. His grandmother shrugged. "Your grandfather ran the store until the very day before he passed, so I can handle it too. Then she looked at him thoughtfully. But what about you? Do you think you can take on this responsibility? Jia Kong took a slow breath. I have to try. There's nothing left for me in the city. His grandmother nodded approvingly. I'll still be here. I'll continue managing most of the work, so it won't be too hard for you. Then, what exactly am I supposed to do? He asked, confused. She cut him off with a small chuckle. Did you go greet the village chief yet? Jia Kong blinked. No, not yet. Well then, she said, dusting off her hands. We'll go say hello to him later. Just then, the door swung open. A young woman stepped inside and immediately shouted for beer, calling his grandmother old broad, and telling her to hurry up and hand it over. His grandmother sighed in irritation. You drink too much. Stop coming here all the time like this. The girl shot back. I can do whatever I want. Then stopped when she noticed Jia Kong standing beside the counter. Her eyes widened. Who's that? Wait, are you a man? His grandmother quickly introduced him. This is my grandson. He'll be working here, starting tomorrow. Jia Kong gave a polite nod. Nice to meet you. I'll be helping out here from now on. The woman barely reacted, muttering, Oh, I see. As if it didn't matter to her, his grandmother placed 3 bottles of beer on the counter. Here. Don't drink them all at once, she scolded. The woman snatched them up and muttered a quick thanks. This is Guijun, Hai Yang, his grandmother explained to Jia Kong. She works night shifts at the factory. She's raising a child on her own. Poor girl comes here all the time for beer. Guijun froze mid-step and turned back, clearly offended. Stop talking about me like that, old broad. Then she stormed out of the store, leaving the door rattling behind her. After Guijun left, Grandma commented that she usually came by to buy exactly 3 bottles of beer every time. Jia Kong found that interesting and asked why Guijun had looked so shocked to see him. Grandma answered simply, Because there are no men in this village. That surprised Jia Kong. What do you mean no men? Grandma nodded as if it were common knowledge. Our village is called Diyum. You already know that part. But do you know its history? Jia Kong shook his head, so Grandma continued. A long time ago, all the men were forced to go off to war. Many of the women fled, and the ones who remained eventually gathered here together. With no men left to rely on, the women had to do everything themselves, working the fields, building houses, raising families. They kept the village alive with their own hands. She paused, then added, And after the war ended, something strange happened. The women could only give birth to girls. Jia Kong blinked. Only girls? Always. Grandma nodded. Always. Even when couples from other villages moved in, it didn't change anything. Every child born here was a girl. The village became entirely female. She gave a small sigh. That's why it was named Diyum, because of its strong yin energy. Some people even call it the no-men village, since there haven't been any men living here for generations. Grandma explained that Jia Kang's grandfather and his uncle were the only men who had ever lived in the village. Hearing this, Jia Kong finally understood why the village was filled with so many female-oriented products. Half jokingly, he asked, So, are they going to make me do all the heavy labor now just because I'm a man? Grandma chuckled. You don't need to worry about that. The women here can handle hard labor just fine. They've been doing it long before you were born. That evening at dinner, his uncle asked, Did you check the stove today? I did, Jia Kong replied. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. His uncle nodded, then casually asked, So, did your girlfriend say anything about coming to visit? Jia Kong nearly choked. I don't have a girlfriend. His uncle raised his eyebrows. You don't? Well, that's good. There are plenty of girls in this village. Jia Kong laughed quietly to himself. The thought of a village without men still seemed strange and amusing to him. Suddenly, it made sense how his Uncle Lee had managed to marry someone as beautiful as Jean. He put down his chopsticks and said, I'll be starting work tomorrow. I'll do my best. His uncle smiled approvingly. That's the spirit. Someone knocked on the door and asked if Kong was awake. Kong replied that he was. It was his aunt. She stood in the doorway and asked how he felt about being there so far. Kong admitted, I'm not really sure yet, but I think I'll get used to it soon. His aunt nodded thoughtfully, then asked, Do you think you can handle the job? Kong hesitated. I don't know, but I'll try my best. She paused, then repeated softly, almost to herself, Really? Kong blinked in confusion. Excuse me. She shook her head quickly. Nothing. Good night. Good night, Aunt Jean Kong replied as he lay back down. He wondered what that conversation had been about. Something in her tone bothered him, but he couldn't figure out what. The next morning at the store, Kong let out a big yawn. Getting up early was harder than he remembered. He noticed his grandmother was already awake and moving around with energy. "Morning, Grandma," he said. "You're up early." She turned and smiled. "Good morning, Kong. We've got a lot to do today." Kong rubbed his eyes and asked, "So, what should I start with?" His grandmother told him that, starting from that day, he would be responsible for the whole. Kong stared at her in confusion. The what? Without further explanation, his grandmother led him deeper into the store and opened a small interior room. "You can stay here if you want," she said. Kong nodded slowly, though he couldn't help wondering why there was a hidden door in the shop. "What exactly am I supposed to do in here?" he asked. "You'll find out soon enough," she replied mysteriously. Kong then noticed a dark, unfamiliar opening in the floor, a hole that seemed strangely out of place. His grandmother pointed to it. "There's a manual your grandfather wrote," she said. "Read it carefully." She handed him a worn notebook. As Kong sat down to read, his grandmother placed a flyer on the stove outside the room. The sign now read, "Hole opened." The manual began with a detailed explanation of the Yum village, its history, its unusual nature, and why it was known as the No-Min village. It described how the entire village was saturated with Yin energy and that a certain Yin ritual had to be performed regularly to keep everything in balance. The manual continued, "In my old age, I could not carry out the ritual for many years. So I have written this guide for the one who succeeds me." Kong sat back, staring at the pages, unsure whether this was some kind of elaborate joke or a responsibility he truly had to take on. The ritual, as described in the manual, involves becoming the whole of this stove to control Yin energy. The manual states that becoming the whole means using his ding-dong in the whole of the room to inject Yang energy into the center of Yin energy. This action is further explained as having sacred ritual with a woman in the other room to balance the Yin energy. Kong, feeling embarrassed, thinks, "What?" As he blushes, suddenly someone enters the other side of the room, drawing Kang's attention that he peeks to see who it is and recognizes the woman who previously came to buy beer. The woman, cheeks flushed, said she was there for the whole and offered him a shy hello. Kong suddenly found himself swept into a vivid memory from his childhood. He remembered once asking his grandfather, "Why do you stay out here in the countryside instead of moving to Seoul?" His grandfather had let out a big, hearty laugh before replying, "Because I love it here. I love this village. It's the best place in the world." Now, standing as an adult in that same village, Kong felt those words echo inside him. He murmured quietly, "Grandfather, is this what you meant?" His reflection was cut short by the activity around him. The women in the room hurried about, preparing for the ritual. One of them addressed him confidently, "Hello. Are you going to take it out once I'm ready?" Kong faltered, peeking at the scene with a mix of curiosity and nerves. His mind raced. Are we seriously doing this here? Then his eyes landed on one of the women, a striking figure with a wild aura, yet undeniably beautiful. As she stepped forward to lead the ritual, her presence seemed to fill the room with a deep, mysterious energy. Kong couldn't help but feel captivated, his questions momentarily silenced by the magnetic aura she exuded. After completing the ritual, Kong reflected on the experience, thinking to himself that it was his first ritual and first job of such a nature. Shortly after, the woman exited the room and informed the shopkeeper that she was finished. The shopkeeper responded by acknowledging her and asked if everything was satisfactory. The woman, however, angrily told him to be quiet and called him an old broad before leaving. The shopkeeper then casually invited her to return. Later, Kong approached his grandmother and questioned her angrily, asking what was going on and expressing disbelief at the situation. His grandmother calmly asked him how the experience was. Shocked and frustrated, Kong asked how she could have put him in such a scenario, mentioning the disturbing nature of the whole ritual. The grandmother, observing the woman's reaction, deduced that Kong had done a good job. She even commented that something must have emerged from the hole, implying success in the task. She apologized for involving Kong without any prior explanation, but praised him, stating that he was truly his grandfather's grandson. Kong, still confused and upset. Asked if this meant that his father and uncle were also aware of such rituals. His grandmother laughed in response. Jia Kong then firmly told her that he had come to help with the store, not to participate in something like this. However, the grandmother insisted that what he had done was, in fact, helping the store. Grandma told Jia Kong that he still had much to learn about their village. She explained that the yin energy in the village needed to be released. Otherwise, something terrible might occur. She emphasized that the whole was part of an ancient and vital ritual, and Jia Kong was now the only one capable of performing it. Confused, Jia Kong asked if Grandma herself had once performed the same ritual. Grandma blushed at the question, which only made him more curious. He asked why she was blushing, but she dismissed him, telling him to stop asking questions and simply read the manual, which his grandfather had likely written to explain everything. She then praised him for his good work, instructing him to rest while she took care of the remaining tasks. Later, back at home, Jia Kong began to reflect on the strange events. He wondered why his grandfather had conducted such rituals in what appeared to be a regular store. He then concluded that the store must have been specifically built for this purpose from the beginning. He found it hard to believe that even his father and uncle were unaware of these rituals. Determined to uncover the truth, Jia Kong decided to investigate further and learn the true purpose of the whole ritual. As he read the manual, he discovered that long ago, their ancestors placed great importance on maintaining a balance between yin and yang energies. However, at some point, harmony was lost, and only the yin energy prevailed, creating an imbalance that required the ritual to restore equilibrium. He learned that every time the imbalance between yin and yang energy occurred, the village of Diyum had to bring men from other villages to perform the ritual. Jia Kong continued reading the manual, where he came across a confession from his grandfather. The grandfather recounted how, after losing his home and family during the war, he had arrived at the village when the villagers offered him food and shelter. Over time, men from across the country began coming to the village, and it was during this period that he met and married his current wife. Feeling overwhelmed, Jia Kong momentarily closed the manual and expressed his discomfort aloud, saying, "Geez, I don't want to know about that, Grandpa." Deciding to skip that part, he resumed reading further. The manual outlined a set of strict rules for the store. Rule number 1, keep events that happen in the store separate from one's private life. Rule number 2, an individual could visit the store only once a day. Rule number 3, the age difference between participants inside and outside the whole ritual must not exceed 12 years. Jia Kong relieved thought to himself that at least he wouldn't have to perform the ritual with older women, though he quickly chastised himself for even having such thoughts. He also wondered how his father and uncle could have been unaware of this bizarre tradition. As he continued reading, Jia Kong discovered that his grandfather, now old and unable to manage the increasing yin energy in the village, had planned for his two sons to take over the responsibility. However, his younger son, described as smart and handsome, refused to stay in the village. The younger son had told his father, "I'm sorry, but I don't intend to stay here. I want to go to the city." True to his word, the younger son left for a life in the city, leaving the responsibilities behind. Jia Kong read more about his grandfather's first son, who was described as manly and well-built. Despite his capabilities, the son had promised to stay in the village, build a large house, earn plenty of money, and take care of the family. However, the manual cryptically mentioned that the tool required for the ritual is too small to become the whole, leaving Jia Kong puzzled. Later during dinner, Jia Kong seemed distracted, and his uncle noticed. The uncle asked, "What's the matter, Jia Kong? I can tell you're thinking of something else while eating." Jia Kong quickly dismissed it, saying it was nothing. Sensing Jia Kang's discomfort, his uncle pressed further, asking how his work at the stove had been. Mentioning that Grandma had said Jia Kong did well, Jia Kong reluctantly admitted that it had gone better than he had expected. His uncle chuckled and replied, "Yeah, that's nice." While Jia Kong remained uneasy, the following day at the store, Grandma placed a hole-closed flyer on the wall with a sigh. Observing this, Jia Kong reflected on his situation. He thought to himself that he hadn't planned to work that day and questioned why he had come to the village in the first place. He had intended to start fresh after losing his business. But this ritual wasn't part of what he had signed up for. Despite his initial frustrations, Jia Kong admitted to himself that participating in the ritual had felt unexpectedly satisfying. However, he was also filled with regret, wondering why he had agreed to be part of it in the first place. He thought, "Why the hell did I do that?" and lamented that if he hadn't gotten involved, he could have packed up and left already. After some time, Jia Kong was startled by a knock on the door. When he answered, he found his Aunt Jean standing there. She greeted him and remarked that she had heard he didn't want to work that day. Feeling cornered, Jia Kong admitted he needed to think about something, but when she pressed him on what it was, he avoided the question, saying he couldn't tell her. Curious and perhaps wanting to lift his mood, Aunt Jean, he suggested they take a walk together. Jia Kong, initially surprised by the offer, agreed after some hesitation. The two set out for a walk, and as they strolled, Jean he remarked on how much the area had improved over the years, especially since the factory had been built. She pointed out how new things had started to come into the village, making it a much better place than before. Jia Kong agreed, somewhat absent-mindedly. Jean he then reflected on how communication had been challenging in the past, mentioning that they couldn't even send letters. Back then, she shifted the conversation to Jia Kang's circumstances, asking if he had come to the village because things hadn't worked out for him elsewhere. Jia Kong confirmed this hesitantly. Jean he expressed her sympathy, remarking how unfortunate the situation was. She explained that Jia Kang's uncle had told her about how hard Kong had worked ever since he was young. In a gentle voice, she then asked him if he had any dreams for his future. After thinking for a moment, Jia Kong admitted that ever since he was a child, his dream had been to earn a lot of money. But he added with a sigh that things hadn't gone the way he expected. Jean he offered him a small but sincere encouragement. "It's good to want to make money," she said, as if to reassure him that his dream wasn't foolish. Even if life had taken a different turn, the aunt commented that when a young person says they want to make money, people often judge them as being shallow or materialistic. But she personally admired the ambition. She then asked, almost defensively, what was wrong with wanting to make money. But she added that Kong seemed a bit too fixated on the idea. Curious, she asked Kong if he had a particular reason for wanting so much money. Kong admitted quietly that he didn't. He simply wanted to make a lot of money. And that was all. As they continued, Kong found himself reflecting on his high school days. Arriving at their destination, Aunt told Kong to take a look at the orchard nearby. She explained that the orchard belonged to Kang's uncle and extended all the way to the far end of the property. She then revealed that Kang's grandfather had been the one who bought the land. Surprised, Kong asked if his grandfather had really bought it. The aunt confirmed, explaining that while Kang's uncle had developed the land, it was their grandfather who had made the original purchase. Kong wondered aloud if his family had been wealthy enough to afford such things. Aunt then questioned who Kong thought had bought the house when his father first moved to Seoul. Kong replied that his father had told him he purchased the house long ago when it was cheaper. The aunt, however, challenged this notion, asking if Kong thought buying a house in Seoul had ever been an easy task, even in the past. Kong exclaimed in disbelief, "No way." Upon hearing the revelation, his aunt calmly informed him that it was his grandfather who had purchased all the properties. Jia Kong was left in shock as he processed this surprising piece of information. Determined, Kong declared that he could make money using the small store. He then expressed to his Aunt Jean that he finally felt motivated to work. Kong told her he intended to take over his grandfather's store and put in hard work to succeed. Hearing this, Aunt Jean smiled and responded that she was glad to hear it. She also mentioned that Kang's uncle had been quite worried about him. Kong, surprised, asked if that was true. His aunt confirmed, stating that Kong was, after all, his uncle's nephew. Aunt Jean continued, expressing that she was looking forward to seeing what Kong would achieve. Confused by her enthusiasm, Kong asked, "Excuse me." She brushed it off, saying, "Oh, it's nothing." Changing the subject, Aunt Jean suggested they go have dinner. Kong agreed, and the two began heading back together. However, as they walked, Kong couldn't help but wonder what his aunt had meant by her earlier words. The story begins with an explanation of yin and yang energy, two opposing forces that create harmony in the world. At some point, Only Yin energy came to dominate the village of Dayum, disrupting the balance. To address this imbalance, the villagers initiated a ritual known as the Hole to release Yin energy. Jia Kong, one of the characters, placed an open flyer on the door as part of this ritual. His grandmother expressed concern, questioning whether he was sure about taking this step. Kong reassured her, confidently stating, "Don't worry, Grandma, I will be the Hole." The two of them entered the store together. Kong reflected on his decision, resolving to work at the store and start afresh, as he had nothing to lose and nowhere else to go. Grandma, seeing Kang's determination, decided to guide him in managing the store. She explained that the first step was to open the door to let fresh air in. When Kong asked about the key, she informed him that it was under the pot behind the stove, advising him to keep it there in the future. She also shared a piece of wisdom about running the store, mentioning that Kang's grandfather always began his day by cleaning the store's front, as they rarely had customers in the morning. She emphasized the importance of maintaining this habit to prepare for the day ahead. Grandma began instructing Kong on managing the store, explaining that he could check the sales after closing. She expressed her trust in him to handle the task. Kong reassured her, confidently stating that he was very thorough when it came to money. Grandma then advised Kong to restock items from the storage when supplies ran low, but warned him to be cautious in the storage area. Observing the state of the store, Kong thought to himself that it was quite messy. Grandma continued, emphasizing the importance of checking inventory before closing each night and ordering new stock if needed. She suggested writing down what was required to stay organized. Kong, however, planned to bring a computer to modernize the process. Kong, confident in his abilities, told Grandma that running the store was simple for him, as he used to manage his own store. Grandma responded with encouragement, expressing confidence in his capabilities. Kong then asked about the Hole, but before Grandma could explain, a woman entered the store. The woman referred to Grandma as Old Broad, prompting Kong to greet her politely. However, the woman questioned Kang's presence, accusing him of not being there the previous day but suddenly appearing now. This caused Kong to recall the ritual, making him feel embarrassed. In his discomfort, he stumbled and fell. Concerned, the woman asked if he was okay. Kong suddenly recalled a key rule, to keep what happens in the store separate from his private life. Remembering this, he composed himself and invited the woman in, saying, "Yes, please come in." Observing her demeanor, he thought to himself that she didn't seem to care much. Kong greeted her with a polite hello. The woman mentioned that Grandma had told her Kong was planning to quit, yet he was still at the store. Grandma clarified, explaining that Kong had changed his mind. The woman responded positively, saying, "That's good." Kong introduced himself, saying, "My name is Jia Kong Li. I hope we get along well." He then asked what he could get for her. The woman requested a bottle of juice, and Kong handed her a few. Despite taking the bottles, she remained standing, hesitating to say something. Sensing her hesitation, Kong asked, "Yes, what happened?" and began to wonder if she was there for the whole ritual. Meanwhile, the woman thought to herself that she had indeed come because she heard the whole ritual was open, but she couldn't bring herself to mention it in front of him. Instead, she hesitated further and requested more bottles of juice. Kong complied, handing her more bottles, while concluding in his mind, "I guess she's not here for the ritual." Later that night, Kong reflected on the day's events, thinking, "So no one came for the whole ritual today. I guess I got nervous for nothing." Grandma suggested to Kong that they close the stove and have dinner. Kong agreed, but mentioned that he needed to clean the storage first, as it was in a terrible state. Grandma advised him to leave it for later or let her handle it, but Kong insisted. He emphasized that keeping the storage neat was fundamental to managing the stove, especially since he was now taking over its responsibilities. Grandma eventually agreed and told Kong that she was heading home and advised him not to be too late. Kong reassured her not to worry and started with cleaning the beverages section. Meanwhile, a woman was walking home from work through the village. She grumbled about how quickly the village became dark and how much she disliked it. While walking, she noticed the store and expressed surprise that it was still open at that hour. She remembered hearing before that the store, often referred to as the Hole, was supposed to be closed by then. Curious, She went inside and greeted the place, but it seemed empty. She remarked that it had been a long time since she'd been there. Usually, she bought items from a nearby mart, as the store was not operational at such late hours. Reflecting, she realized she hadn't visited the store since her elementary school days, and recalled that the owner might have been the old man from the orchid. A woman entered a store and picked up some candies. She was amazed and remarked how it had been a long time since she'd seen them. Sitting down, she reminisced, mentioning that she used to eat those candies often with her grandmother. Reflecting on the moment, she wondered why she was feeling nostalgic in a store so close to her home, and decided to check if the candies were still fresh. Meanwhile, in the storage room, Kong had just put down a box and commented to himself about being sweaty. Hearing the woman's voice expressing nostalgia, Kong realized that a customer was in the store, which surprised him since he hadn't been expecting anyone at that hour. He decided to check, and saw her sitting in the store. Apologizing, he explained that he hadn't noticed her come in, because he had been in the storage room. The woman reassured him that it was fine, and explained that she was just looking around. However, Kong interrupted her to ask if she was searching for something specific. As the woman looked at him, she was struck by his appearance. Noticing his broad build, thick arms, strong neck, and deep voice, she even compared his thighs to the size of her own body. Feeling self-conscious, she realized he was a man and became embarrassed, wondering why a man was there. Attempting to explain herself, the woman stammered, saying that she had noticed the light on and had come inside out of curiosity. She mentioned that she had never seen a young man in the village before. Kong, confused by her statement, responded with, "Pardon?" Startled, she muttered, "Excuse me," and hurriedly ran out. "Hey, wait!" The man, Kong, called after her, confused by her sudden reaction. He stood there, watching her disappear down the street, thinking what was that? Later that night, the woman arrived home. She opened the door and called out, "I'm home." Her mom greeted her from the kitchen. "You are late today, Haru." Haru hesitated for a moment, then asked, "Mom, do you know the small store next to the old bookstore? An old man used to run it." Her mother seemed startled by the question. "I really don't know," she replied, avoiding Haru's gaze. Haru frowned, recalling the incident. "I was there and saw a man," she said. "Really?" Her mom replied, her tone neutral. "Yeah." Haru continued, "I have never seen a young man here before." She thought. "I panicked back there," she realized. "I think there's something about that store." The next day at the store, Kong reflected on how it had only been a day since he took over the family business. As an ex-business owner, he quickly adapted to the responsibilities, though he still needed time to get used to managing the store, which prominently featured a sign with the word "hole." Kong decided to focus on improving the business. To start, he analyzed the store's usual traffic. Most visitors were elderly women from the village who often stopped by to see his grandmother. Additionally, children from the neighborhood came by after school, primarily for the snacks sold at the store. He thought about introducing video games or a claw crane machine, reminiscing about how he enjoyed such things as a child. However, he doubted whether they would fit the store's atmosphere and even questioned if children should frequent the establishment at all. From time to time, Kong noticed middle-aged women blushing when they saw the store's whole sign. He wondered about the significance of the sign and its connection to the family's traditions. Being 30 years old, he calculated that the +12 rule might mean he would have to perform certain rituals with people up to the age of 42. This realization made him reflect on his grandfather who had managed to support the family through this peculiar role. Kong couldn't help but question how much money his grandfather had made from this unusual job. Lastly, Kong couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He had spotted a woman staring at the store, and he was convinced it was the same woman he had seen the previous night. What's wrong with her? He thought, as unease settled over him. The young woman introduced herself as Haru, and a 23-year-old who worked for a company near the village. She explained that the village was situated deep in the countryside, requiring a 30-minute commute to work. There were no places to hang out, and her daily life revolved solely around her home and workplace. Haru often found herself frustrated with her situation. "All the men and women who work at the company are way older than me," she thought while crying internally. "My precious youth is wasting away." It even takes longer to go downtown than it does to get to work. With a deep sigh, Haru thought, I can't wait until I save up enough money to leave this village. However, her thoughts took a sudden turn. But wait, there's a man in our village, and he's young. Nearby, Jia Kong noticed her. Observing her demeanor, he thought, she looks like an office worker. Is she coming from work? Should I go say hello? Summoning his courage, Kong moved toward Haru to greet her. But as soon as she noticed him, Haru became shy and abruptly started running away. Wait, Jia Kong called after her. Haru stopped, but quickly hid behind a pole. Kong, confused by her reaction, thought, you don't have to run away. Meanwhile, Haru's mind was racing. What should I do? This is my first time seeing a man in this village. I don't know what to do. She tried to compose herself, but couldn't help comparing Kong to Mr. Orchard, an older man in the village. Mr. Orchard is nice, but he's so much older than me. This guy, though, is young, handsome, and even has a good body. Haru's heart raced, and she felt increasingly nervous as she tried to make sense of her emotions. Haru couldn't help but think, if only Jayam Hai hadn't said that strange thing earlier. A few minutes earlier, Jayam Hai had been venting about her day. Man, I worked overtime yesterday, and today I just want to go home and drink some juice, she said. Haru greeted her cheerfully and stopped her. Jayam Hai responded with, it's been so long, Haru. Haru, slightly puzzled, replied, we met last week. Jayam Hai laughed and said, but this is the first time we've met on the way home. Haru nodded and said, yeah, what a coincidence. Jayam Hai suggested, let's grab some juice from the store nearby. Excitedly, Haru said, oh yeah, I went to that store the other day, and there was a young man there. Did you know that? Jayam Hai raised an eyebrow and replied, oh yeah. Haru continued, you know, I saw him last time, and I was so surprised that I ran away. Jayam Hai, trying to piece things together, asked, you did? Haru explained, yeah, a young man finally came to this village. Jayam Hai blushed slightly and thought, why is she telling me this? Noticing Jayam Hai's reaction, Haru added, if you're going to that store, I'm coming too. Jayam Hai, still flustered, asked, what? Are you going to do the whole ritual? Confused, Haru exclaimed, what? What did you just say? Jayam Hai clarified, well, you kept talking about the store. Aren't you talking about doing the whole ritual? Still perplexed, Haru asked, what's that? What's the whole? Jayam became visibly flustered and exclaimed, what was that? Internally, she thought, whoa, Haru doesn't know about the whole ritual. Haru, noticing her reaction, asked, you know something about a whole ritual? Caught off guard, Jayam stammered, did I? What's a whole? Did I say that? Haru insisted, you did. In an attempt to change the subject, Jayam quickly said, I should hurry and go make Yunwal's dinner. I will be going now. Bye, Haru. She hurriedly left. As Jayam left, Haru called out, wait, Jayam Hai. But Jayam didn't stop. Haru's mind raced with thoughts. Do the whole ritual? What does that mean? I think I'm remembering something. I have to go to that store again. I did remember if I come here. How should I ask? While Haru was deep in thought, Jia Kang's grandmother noticed her and approached. Aren't you Haru? What are you doing here? She asked. Haru greeted her nervously. Hi, Granny. The grandmother asked curiously, why are you hiding? Haru hesitated and replied, oh, it's nothing. But the grandmother wasn't convinced. Are you here to see my grandson? She asked with a knowing smile. Surprised, Haru exclaimed, grandson? He's your grandson. The grandmother replied confidently, I knew it. Taking Haru's hand, she added, don't just stand there, come with me. Startled, Haru protested, what? Wait, I'm not ready. But the grandmother brushed her worries aside. Silly girl, why do you need to be ready? Come on into the shop, she said, leading Haru inside. Grandma immediately began introducing Haru to Jia Kong. Kong, this is Haru, she announced. Kong blinked in confusion. She's what? Where did she go? Haru had slipped behind the door and was peeking at them from her hiding spot. Eventually, she managed a quiet, hello. Jia Kong returned the greeting. Hello. You came by yesterday, didn't you? Blushing, Haru replied. I'm sorry I ran off like that. I just panicked. Kong smiled reassuringly. It's all right. I was in the storeroom and didn't notice you come in. Hello again, Haru. Haru wondered to herself. Why is someone like him working at a place like this? Gathering her courage, she said, I'm here for the full ritual. Kong nodded. Of course, the full ritual. Just a moment. Grandma chimed in. Ah, so you really are here for the whole ritual. Flustered, Haru stammered. What? Well, actually, no need to be shy, Grandma insisted. It's perfectly natural. Come this way. Wait, what? Haru said, still startled. You can go in here, Grandma continued. Haru noticed something strange and thought, there's a hidden door behind the curtain. This shop has a secret room. What exactly is this whole ritual they keep talking about? Then she spotted a hole and exclaimed, What kind of hole is this?
That's it for now. For more manhwa recaps, please subscribe to my channel, Manhwa Recaps.